Hello, and welcome to the lecture over Texas colonies and Stephen F. Austin. I'm going to discuss uh, the intricacies of the Texas colony and one of the most important figures in Texas history. So, a little bit of background the colonies in Texas. Spain wanted people living in Texas, but had a difficult time getting many people there. This is for a number of reasons. Mostly due to the Native Americans that were in the area, the Apaches and the Comanches, Caddo, Karankawa. There wasn't a lot of people that lived in Mexico that wanted to come to Texas to live, primarily because of the conflicts that were occurring. Except San Antonio, the civil settlements were not large. They were closer to Mexico than they were to Louisiana, and this is for many different reasons. There was a need for a population that would soon be fulfilled, not by the Mexicans, but by the Anglo Americans. One Moses Austin, which a lot of people outside of Texas history have not heard of. He was the father of Stephen F. Austin. He was an American, born in Connecticut, also lived in Missouri. He owned a bank in Missouri. He had, seems like every business that he would try to bring up, he would have issues with it. He had an extreme amount of debt. He felt that the Spanish territory or Mexico was a good opportunity to reestablish these business prospects and to regain the glory of the family name. He met with the Texas governor, Martinez, who did not trust Americans due to Philip Long and other filibuster threats that had occurred. Moses Austin left the meeting quite discouraged that this was not going to work for him. He met with an old friend on the way out of San Antonio, and it happened to be Baron de Bastrop, who is named after the city, or who the city of Bastrop is named after. He offered to help him with Governor Martinez, and he helped Moses finally request land to bring settlers to Texas. And historians can contemplate what might have happened had that not meeting had not occurred. And it's quite interesting to think, the what ifs in history. Martinez approved of the colonies, and Moses returns to Austin. But on the way, he became seriously ill. He calls for his son Stephen to see him. And Stephen F. Austin, right, who again was the son of Moses Austin, had been a lawyer. He had spent time in Missouri, Louisiana, very close to the family. And on the right, you can see a famous picture of Stephen F. Austin. And reluctantly, some say, as a promise to his dying father, he agreed to actually help build the colony. And some believe it is primarily, he agreed to do this primarily because he had some troubles himself. And which it brings up a point. A lot of people that became tremendously famous Texas historical figures, especially during the Texas Revolution, were running away from something. And it can be said the same is true for Stephen F. Austin. So, otherwise, right, he begins the process by meeting with officials in San Antonio, right, and he prepared a colony. And on the right, you can see a map of where some of these colonies were primarily located, right, and they were primarily closer to the coast, right around this southeastern right corner of Texas. A lot of reasons why a lot of them did not come up in here to the northwestern portion and the modern day Lubbock and West Texas. Again, the Native Americans were of a tremendous force up there. So he meets with Erasmo Seguin, who again, there's a city named after him in Texas. You'll see that's pretty commonplace, and began to plan a colony. He explored East Texas looking for a suitable place for the colony, and he chose an area between the Brazos and Colorado rivers. The area had a very rich farmland. It had water, timber, everything, a mild climate, everything that a colony would need in order to survive and be able to have plantations, which brings about the one of the reasons why a lot of Anglo Americans were moving to Texas during the early 1800s, mid 1800s, is because a lot of them were, unfortunately, plantation owners that had slaves, right, needed large amounts of land. In the area that Austin had picked for his colony was very good for cotton plantation. So he readies the colony, and you can see a picture of the beautiful Brazos River right here, and alongside that, a map of the Texas coastline. He goes to Louisiana, advertises for settlers. He reports a proposed location of the colony, land terms to Governor Martinez in Texas, and finances a ship called the Lively. And finances they were secured in New Orleans with a one Joseph Hawkins. And he sets the terms and price for the purchase into the colony, as well as requirements that the applicants had to go through. The requirements for the colonists to go, and Austin was very strict in following these because he knew if he wasn't, the Mexican government would not allow him to bring the colonists there. They had to be willing to become loyal Mexican citizens. They had to join the Catholic Church. They had to be law abiding citizens, although that one is kind of skirted at times, and oftentimes different things are overlooked, and have a reputation as hardworking. And no history of drunkenness or vagrancy. And again, right, with the law abiding citizen, that kind of gets skirted a lot of times by. And as well as joining the Catholic Church. And a lot of them would say, they would say, okay, we are going to become Catholics, but still keep their Protestant faith. Uh, and that becomes an issue later on during the Texas Revolution, right? So, the first attempt to settle the colony, the ship, right, took the first colonists to Texas, lands on the Brazos instead of the Colorado, where Austin had settled in 1822. Many of these settlers would return to the United States because of this misfortune. A second trip is taken, and the Lively actually wrecks outside of Galveston, and a lot of the supplies get lost, and the colonists struggle. And Austin goes to San Antonio to report to Martinez and seek help, and finds quite a surprise. The surprise is that Austin had to travel to Mexico City at that time to renew the colony's contract with new political leaders of Mexico. And during this time, Mexico was going through quite a number of adversity when it came to political agreements. And one had unfortunately happened during the time he was trying to settle. So he has to travel down to Mexico City. He spent a lot of 1822 trying to convince the new leaders in Mexico City to approve of this colony. In January 1823, the imperial colonization law was passed, and which secures the colony, allows for new settlers to join. Austin would, and this is a theme of his, he would gain the respect and trust of the Mexican officials and return to, during his meetings, and returns to Texas in April 1823. So he spends quite a bit of time in Mexico City trying to secure these. Though the colony grows, Austin establishes the first headquarters of the colony to help discourage settlers and secure order. He establishes a new set of laws to guide it that are based, a lot of them, on Mexican laws, but as well to give comfort to the settlers on American laws. And Austin was the only legal authority in the colony at the time. The colony grows. Right by the fall of 1824. The colony's contract was almost complete, as we have 297 families, which would become to be known as the Old 300. There is still a bit of a legacy when it comes to last names and family history in Texas. If your family was one of the original Old 300, it's quite a bit of prestige that comes with it. So most the people of the Old 300, mostly Americans, farmers with some education. Yes, there were slaveholders. Some of the larger ones, most important ones, Samuel Williams, Jane Long, Jared Gross, right? They become the foundation of colonization in Texas. Further developments, right? 1824, San Felipe de Austin near Nebraska becomes the official capital of Austin's colony. Not the Later on in Texas, it would become uh, a little bit not in the same location, but very near it. The Colorado would become the city of Austin, which is the capital of Texas, or city of Austin, that's the capital of Texas. It becomes the financial political capital, becomes the second largest business center. San Antonio, which has been around much longer, is obviously the first at that time. So there's some other impresarios of note in other colonies. Uh, there's Green DeWitt's. There's still a county named after him. Right, he had a colony near Guadalupe River. Founded the town of Gonzales, which would become the site of the first battle of the Texas Revolution. Martin de Leon founded the city of Victoria. This colony mostly had colonists that came from Mexico. Here's us a interesting cartoon. I love, Roger Moore. The Karankawas want to see our building permit, right? Because these colonists were coming in, and the Karankawas and Native Americans obviously had a not an understanding of the Anglo Americans' ways of land. So here's the legacy of Austin. Right, his colonies actually settled over 1,500 families. San Felipe de Austin and Bastrop were important business centers during the colonial times in Texas. Mexican officials trusted him tremendously, and this trust would have lead all the way up until around 1835, when Austin would actually, unfortunately, be imprisoned because of Santa Anna in Mexico City, and he would lose the trust of the Mexican government, and he himself would learn to not trust them, leading to the Texas Revolution. Today, he is often known as the father of Texas. There is a state university, Stephen F. Austin, that is named after him, as well as the capital of Texas. Thank you very much.